The Burkina Faso government adopted on Wednesday a bill at the Council of the Ministers to dissolve the Independent National Electoral Commission.
In a move that has drawn both intense scrutiny and international shock, the government of Burkina Faso has officially dissolved its Independent National Electoral Commission, known as CENI. The announcement was made through a televised address by Minister of Territorial Administration Émile Zerbo, who explained that the decision was driven by both financial responsibility and the need to restore full national control over the electoral process. The commission, which had long been responsible for organizing elections in Burkina Faso, was reportedly costing the state approximately $870,000 annually in subsidies. According to Zerbo, this financial burden was no longer justifiable in a country that is undergoing sweeping structural reforms aimed at full sovereignty and development independence. The move is part of a larger transformation under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who came to power in September 2022. Since then, Traoré's administration has consistently taken bold and unconventional steps to reshape governance and national direction. For supporters of the government, the decision to dissolve CENI is seen not as a dismantling of democracy, but rather a correction of systems viewed as inefficient and externally influenced. According to authorities, the new arrangement will place the responsibility for elections under the Ministry of Territorial Administration, which they argue will bring greater transparency and national ownership to the process. While the announcement has sparked criticism from some international observers who fear a regression in democratic governance, the government insists the decision was necessary to limit foreign influence in national affairs. Traoré himself delivered a speech that has since drawn widespread attention. In it, he stated unequivocally, "We are not in a democracy. We are in a revolution." That phrase, which has since been shared widely across Africa, reflects a broader philosophy underpinning the government's decisions, that development must come before democracy, and not the other way around. Burkina Faso's recent history has been marked by instability, insurgent threats, and socio-economic hardship. Prior to Traoré's rise, jihadist groups controlled large swaths of national territory, and millions of citizens were displaced due to violence. Infrastructure was deteriorating, schools and clinics were closed, and basic services were inaccessible to many. The political system, including institutions like CENI, was often criticized for being symbolic rather than functional, more concerned with maintaining the appearance of democracy than delivering real outcomes for citizens. For the transitional government, the move to dismantle the Electoral Commission is part of a wider plan to rebuild national institutions based on sovereignty, efficiency, and relevance to the country's needs. Officials argue that past electoral bodies were overly dependent on foreign donors and often failed to reflect the will of the Burkinabe people. Minister Zerbo emphasized that the goal was not to abandon elections altogether, but to ensure they were conducted in a way that prioritized national interests over international expectations. International reactions have been swift. In capitals like Paris, Washington, and Brussels, diplomats and policymakers have expressed concern that Burkina Faso is moving away from democratic norms. Many have questioned the implications for governance and regional stability. Yet within Burkina Faso and parts of the Sahel, Traoré's message seems to be resonating with large segments of the population, particularly among youth who have grown disillusioned with systems that have delivered little in terms of jobs, education, and security. Since taking office, Traoré has adopted a firm stance on sovereignty and self-reliance. One of his earliest decisions was to demand the withdrawal of French troops from Burkina Faso, ending a long-standing military partnership. His administration then pivoted towards new alliances, particularly with fellow Sahel states like Mali and Niger under the Alliance of Sahel States, as well as international partners such as Russia and Iran. This pivot, while controversial, has allowed Burkina Faso to reassert control over key national assets and security decisions. The government has also launched several domestic initiatives aimed at revitalizing the economy. In 2023, Burkina Faso opened its first state-owned gold refinery, a strategic move to ensure that more of the country's mineral wealth remains within its borders. Several mining assets previously owned by foreign companies were also transferred to the state, and measures were introduced to combat gold smuggling and tax evasion. These reforms have reportedly boosted government revenue and are being reinvested in infrastructure, healthcare, and agriculture. Under Traoré's leadership, the state has committed to building thousands of kilometers of roads each year and is working on major projects like the new Ouagadougou-Donsin International Airport, scheduled to open in 2026. New hospitals, schools, and health centers are being constructed across the country, particularly in rural areas that were previously underserved. Mobile clinics have been deployed to reach isolated communities, and efforts to improve maternal and child health are underway. In agriculture, the government has focused on increasing food production through investments in irrigation, seed distribution, and farming equipment. Burkina Faso also launched its first state-owned dairy processing facility, Faso Light, in 2025. These initiatives aim to boost food security and create jobs in a country where agriculture employs nearly 80% of the population. Energy independence has also become a priority. In July 2025, the government broke ground on a large-scale solar energy project spanning over 270 hectares. Once completed, it is expected to power significant portions of the national grid, reducing reliance on costly fuel imports and lowering the country's carbon footprint. Despite the momentum, the government continues to face considerable challenges. Insurgent violence, particularly from jihadist groups, remains a persistent threat. As of mid-2025, over 2.6 million people remain displaced due to insecurity. To respond, the government launched a nationwide volunteer recruitment campaign for defense forces, which has helped regain some territory but has also raised questions about the risks posed to civilian volunteers. At the same time, concerns have been raised about restrictions on press freedom and civil liberties. Several journalists and opposition figures have been detained, and critics worry about the narrowing space for dissent. However, supporters argue that such measures are necessary in a country that remains at war and under constant threat from internal and external destabilization. Public support for Traoré remains strong. In April 2025, when rumors of a potential coup circulated, hundreds of thousands of people reportedly marched in support of the government. For many citizens, Traoré represents a break from the past, a leader who is not beholden to foreign donors and who is taking concrete steps to restore dignity, security, and prosperity to the nation. Outside Burkina Faso, the implications of Traoré's governance model are being closely studied. His emphasis on development-first governance challenges long-standing assumptions about the universality of democracy as the foundation for progress. Rather than focusing on elections and political competition, Traoré's administration is prioritizing discipline, national unity, and tangible outcomes. While not without controversy, this model is gaining attention in other African nations also struggling with insecurity, underdevelopment, and foreign dependency. For Traoré, the rejection of the Electoral Commission is not the end of democracy, but the beginning of a new chapter in Burkina Faso's political evolution. It is a declaration that governance should serve the people, not external expectations. Whether this experiment succeeds will depend on the government's ability to maintain public trust, deliver results, and navigate the complex challenges still facing the country. Burkina Faso's current trajectory reflects a broader shift across the continent. As African nations continue to grapple with post-colonial realities and growing youth populations, the question is no longer whether democracy will work in Africa, but what form governance must take to truly serve African needs. Traoré's Burkina Faso may not offer all the answers, but it has certainly posed a question the world can no longer ignore. This is Voice of Africa, Stay tuned for more updates as we continue to cover Burkina Faso's unfolding transformation and what it means for the future of the continent. Like, share, and subscribe to help us tell Africa's story on African terms.